Pass the Syrup, a breakfast table look at fiscal year 20 equalization. In 2016, John, Quincy, and Rex first appeared on the scene to walk us through the recipe for equalization syrup, ingredient by ingredient, step by step. Today, they return to complete the meal, showing us how to make local support waffles. Before we head to the kitchen, let's first set the table. There are several plates to choose from. We have the bond fund, used for capital expenditures or to purchase items like technology and buses. There is the activity fund, money raised by and spent on students for organizations like athletics, drama, and band. We also have the building fund, used for the repair and maintenance of the district's facilities. However, our menu does not include any of these selections. Instead, the special of the day is the general fund. It comes with a salad of federal grant money received for targeted students like Title I or special education, and a side of state funding for items such as the purchase of textbooks. Today's recipe is for the main course, local revenue used primarily for staffing. Our first ingredient is school land earnings, distributed based on attendance. Our dinner guests will include 9 Oklahoma County school districts, as well as representative of the average for the state as a whole. On a dollar per WADM basis, most of the selected districts receive more than the state average, with only Bethany and the charter schools falling under the line. As charters do not receive local revenues, they will continually sit at zero. But do not worry, like a fine souffle, they will rise. And I know what you're thinking. What the what is WADM? Like any good English teacher, let's start with the root word, or phrase in this case. ADM stands for Average Daily Membership, a mouthful that essentially means enrollment. However, since different students require different resources, weights are assigned to estimate individual cost. For example, the educational cost of a special ed student is different than an economically disadvantaged student, is different than a regular ed student. These weighted cost numbers, WADM, are the basis of state aid funding. Are you still what the whatting? Let me share a WADM story. My children, they love me. So much, in fact, that I still have 4 living at home. Keep it between us, but I'm looking for someone to take one in. This is Sydney, my youngest, and her brother Brady when he looks in the mirror. And I will gladly give you $500 a month to give them a room. As for food, Sid comes with an additional $100, while you'll need another $500 for Brady. In this story, the cost of the room is ADM, the same for each child, while the cost of room and board is WADM, unique to the individual. Let's return to the kitchen. Next, we fold in motor vehicle revenue, collected on a state level and distributed to schools based on their attendance. Funding levels are beginning to spread out now. For instance, while Bethany is only $17 behind the state average, it is $130 less than Oklahoma City. After blending in County 4 mill revenue, Deer Creek and Edmond are now relatively equal, while being twice as much as Oakdale. It's time for a dash of gross production tax and a dollop of REA tax. While the state averages $88 and $38 per weighted ADM respectively, our districts barely receive enough to register. We finish our recipe with property tax revenue. Property tax is entirely dependent on the property value within a school district's boundaries, regardless of the number or category of its students. The disparity in local revenues is readily apparent. Oakdale is now receiving over 7 times the funding that Bethany is, while Middale is receiving only 75% of neighboring Oklahoma City. For the sake of brevity, we've already baked our mixture into beautiful waffles, and it's time to add state aid. Without equalization, state aid would be allocated evenly per weighted ATM, resting on top like sliced bananas, with each district receiving an identical $2,028 per weighted ATM. Oakdale would be $2,767 above the state average, while our charter schools would be $1,453 below. It was this exact disparity equalization looked to address. Now state aid is distributed like syrup, filling the deficits of each district before finally covering all. With the exception of 30 to 40 locally affluent districts like Oakdale, all districts receive the same funding when both local support and state aid are considered. And as promised, while charter schools receive no local funding, they do receive the requisite state aid to make up the difference.